Wear comfortable shoes. That's an important rule that a lot of people don't look at.
Wear comfy shoes? That's the kind of level-headed advice you get from someone who has attended the Academy Awards ceremony 8 times. I'm Elizabeth Pearson Garr, and this is the Experience Podcast, the podcast that gets the answers to the questions you've always wanted to ask about the experiences you may never have had. Today, we get to go to the Oscars, at least vicariously. I got all sorts of inside scoop during a really fun, dishy conversation with Amanda Docter. Unlike the rest of us who park ourselves in front of the television each year to watch the Oscars, Amanda is usually walking the red carpet and sitting in the Dolby Theater. Her husband, Pete Docter, is the chief creative officer of Pixar and has written and directed several hit animated movies. And he's won 3 Academy Awards for Up, Inside Out, and Soul. Before this interview, Amanda and I had never met, but she's so warm and friendly, I soon felt like we were old friends. Hello, Amanda. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to be here.
I really appreciate this. When I first conceived of the idea for this podcast of behind the scenes, what is it really like to ... attend the Oscars was kind of at the top of my list because the Academy Awards is one of those things that's, for those of us who love movies, it's kind of a part of our lives. We watch it on an annual basis, but it's such an exclusive event, we can never get there. We don't really know what it's like. So Here you are, an insider, to help us through. Tell us how many times you've been. And
we have been 8 times, 7 of which Pete was a nominee. The first time was 1996 for Toy Story.
And he was a screenwriter
yes.
for that.
And I was 2 weeks away from my due date from our first child. So I was obscenely pregnant.
Oh my gosh. How did you feel about going that time? I mean, it must have been exciting, but you're about to have your first baby.
Exactly. So they actually kindly, Disney gave us the jet, the corporate jet to fly to and from, just to make sure that I could get home if I needed to. I remember one thing that happens at the Academy Awards is that there's a lot of standing ovations. And you just get settled sitting down when you're pregnant, and then you have to pull yourself back up. And it was like, I don't need to get up every time.
We'll let the pregnant lady just continue
exactly.
to sit.
I'll applaud from being seated, yeah.
That was a really unique experience, I'm sure.
Yes, it was. It was fun, as they all are in their own surreal way.
Is it still a fun experience, even if you don't come home with the trophy?
It is. Well, and so the first 4 times we went, he was a nominee. He lost because on the 2009 original screenplay for WALL-E, WALL-E won for animated feature, but Pete didn't direct it. He was one of the original story guys on it. So it was the 5th time was the charm when he won for animated feature for Up in 2010. Then after he won, we went another year just as an Academy member, put his name in the lottery to get tickets for seats, and we got them. And so Toy Story 3 won, but he didn't really have that much to do with Toy Story 3. So we were just kind of going as people in the audience.
So that was less pressure, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, I said, and I don't mean this in any... It was like being at your little brother's wedding. After you've had your wedding, you're like, okay, we're just going to sit back and enjoy it because we're not in the hot seat.
No one's really watching us.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And then we went for 2016, and he won for animated feature for Inside Out. And then this past year for Soul, he won again for animated feature. In some press thing, he called himself, way back when, a 4-time Academy Award loser. And the Academy got a hold of that or heard it, and they said, no, you cannot use that word. You are a nominee. You're not a loser. He liked the idea of sounding like a loser better than a nominee.
Well, I've read that he's a pretty humble, down-to-earth guy, so I bet that's what he was going with.
It's such a weird thing. Yes, exactly.
Has your experience just thinking about going, I mean, obviously, from the first time you were pregnant, so that was its own thing, but over time, do you feel like, has it become more normal, or is this something that feels more just part of your life, or do you feel like each time you go, it's a huge event and equally as, I don't know, overwhelming or exciting, or what word would you use?
I would say yes and yes. There's something about the wisdom of wear comfortable shoes. That's an important rule that a lot of people don't look at. And I think, again, I'm going to say with time comes wisdom of you don't need to kill yourself on what you wear and how you look. And, because you really kind of realize that nobody's looking at you. And there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot to be said about just going and enjoying and not worrying about press. And they certainly do not care about the animated feature director's wife. So
pressure is off. Just
exactly. And once you know
be
that,
in the moment.
It's a lot more fun.
Like the message of Soul, too. Just live every moment and just enjoy it.
People will say, oh, what did you wear? And I'm like, well, the way I usually work to find out what I'm going to wear is I go on Nordstrom.com, order a whole bunch of dresses, have them sent to my house, and in the privacy of my own room, I shall try them on, and, then you can return what you don't want. And I did that again this year, and while I was trying stuff on, this one needed to be taken in here, and this one was too long and too big. You also don't want to wear a dress with a train, because there's a lot of people step on dresses, just as you're like going through, and you see women getting mad, and you're like, you're wearing a lot of volume here. What do you expect? So you want to wear something that's
up for trouble.
Exactly. And people are getting mad, and no one to blame but yourself. But I was trying on dresses, and I was over in my closet, and I saw something. I'm like, what is this dress from? Where did I wear this old one hanging up here? And I thought, if I don't remember where I wore that dress, nobody else is going to remember where I wore that dress. So I returned everything that I had ordered, and I wore a dress that I had worn before. And nobody noticed.
As long as we're talking about that stuff, can you kind of take me through that process? So you fly down to LA, you're staying in a hotel,
This is where the Disney machine is big and wonderful and generous. We'll fly down for the weekend, and this is a COVID weekend. This past year was totally different. But normally you fly down on, say, Wednesday or Thursday, and the Academy has a lot of events planned for all the nominees. There'll be talks, and there'll be dinners, and there'll be stuff like that. So you can actually get to talk with your fellow nominees. And sometimes we're invited to you've seen them, and they're called gifting suites, where you walk through these hotel rooms or big spaces, and people give you things. It's crazy. Everything
like
from
watches,
socks to sunglasses to jewelry to t-shirts and they all just want famous people to wear them and promote their thing. And somehow we get invited too. We've only been invited to a few of them, and you can see they're a little disappointed when they figure out who we are. They want the stars. They want the people in People magazine. But they're fun, and we'll have dinners with friends and colleagues and that kind of stuff. And then the Sunday morning, we have a tradition of having breakfast with some dear friends, including Richard Sherman, who he and his brother wrote the music for Mary Poppins, and it's Disneyland stuff. And we've known Richard and Elizabeth for years, and so we call them our good luck charm for Sunday morning brunch. Wonderful people. And then at some point, the Disney people have hired, bless their hearts, a makeup and hair person to come take care of both Pete and me. And they'll spend an hour and a half on me and 4 minutes on Pete.
So they come to the hotel and they
come to the hotel and they have a whole bag of stuff.
Glam squad.
Exactly. I always just say, I don't want to be embarrassing. That's my, I don't need to stand out. I just don't want to, I don't want to stand out for good or bad. I just want to blend right in. And for Pete, they'll, pluck a few eyebrows or take a shine off his chin or whatever, and he's good to go. And then one of the things of being an animated feature nominee is we know the press don't really care as much as about the celebrities, so they always try to get us to go early so that the red carpet isn't packed. And so we'll walk through when it's pretty light on the crowds. Some will ask Pete questions, and there's usually somebody who walking in front of Pete who will hold up a sign kind of announcing who this guy is I'm with. And some of the press are like, oh yeah, I have a question. And other press are like, no, we don't have any questions for him. We don't want to talk to him.
We'll pass.
And Pete's like, good, one less. He wants to get out.
Yeah.
So we make our way through he makes his way along the red carpet as a guest. Actually, as you enter the space, you go through security and they make sure your tickets and your ID. And then there's actually kind of 3 lanes of walking in this long distance. And closest to the press, they put all the nominees. On the opposite side, they put everybody else. And you're just supposed to just keep walking. And those people usually, if you watch the show, usually walk kind of slowly because they want to be seen on TV. And if you kind of pull yourself off the side, you can linger a little bit longer. And there's a middle lane, as far as somebody called it the carpool lane, and it was for security or like people in wheelchairs who need to like get through. But so you're walking along this long walkway, and some of the, sometimes it's an hour of press if they all want to talk to you. And for Pete, it's not. And I'm over on the other side just kind of waiting for him as I'm kind of staggering along with him.
Trying to track him as you go down. And
then once that's done, he's free to go in, and you can grab a cocktail and that kind of thing before you get seated in your seats. And then if the show starts at 5, at 4:40 is when all the celebrities actually show up. Out on the red carpet, it's just crazy. But we're long in and away from all those guys because they don't want us around.
So you said you have your tickets. Are there actual tickets? Like
yes.
Getting into a football game or something?
With seats. Yep. With
seats. Your seat numbers.
Yes, very much. And the Dolby Theater, where it normally is a huge theater. And the first kind of section, the first 12 rows, is where most of the nominees and celebrities sit. And everybody else in the back and up in the thing, they're studio executives and Academy members can put their name in the lottery to buy tickets just to attend the event.
Like the year that you went for Toy Story 3.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you were sitting.
And if you'll notice on TV, all the cameras are aimed at those first, 12 rows. That's who America wants to see. And they'll put costume designers and, documentary shorts. They'll kind of put them maybe up back at least along the aisle. So if they win, they can run up. But they're not, they know who America wants to see.
They know who is going to get more of the ratings.
Exactly.
The well-known faces.
And once you know that, it's okay. So the year we went to the Academy Awards, when he wasn't a nominee, it was the year Toy Story 3 came out. He got tickets. So we were seated on the main floor. The Dolby Theater has like 2 or 3 balconies, but we happened to get the tickets that were on the floor way back out of camera, not in those front 12, but back there. And the show hadn't started yet. And there were 2 seats in front of us that were empty, not yet filled. And I noticed down the center aisle over to my left, I look and I see this man and woman come in with an usher who the usher gestures to these seats in front of us. And the guy looks down and sees that these are not front row. These are back, row. And he's kind of we're just all pantomiming. We're just observing, basically says to this usher, no, and kind of gestures forward, find us some seats up there. And you see this little usher who's, 21, kind of shuffling back into the outside. And this guy is standing in the middle of just with his arms crossed, waiting, and then you see a senior usher come up and kind of gesture with this, sorry, these are your seats, and kind of gestures over like, this is where you're going to be. And you see the anger. And the guy and the woman come and shuffle in and plunk down in front of us. This is 2011. It was Donald Trump. He was mad that he wasn't up in the front. He was back by us. So Donald and his wife, whatever her name is, the whole time, she was on her BlackBerry the entire time. They never applauded. They never stood up for any of the standing ovations. And he just sat there with his arms crossed the whole time.
Oh my!
So he sat right in. I have a picture. He sat right in front of us, and I remember describing his hair looked like a golden dyed Brillo pad. It was kind of airy and fluffy in there. So it makes a great story with the punchline of this picture. The year before, when we were there for Up, our local neighbor, at that point worked for Tiffany, the store, the fancy store. And he so kindly got me some loaned jewels from Tiffany. And I'm sure Tiffany was like, who's this woman? Why are we getting, okay, well, George works here. So I had earrings and a ring and a bracelet or something, a couple $100,000 in jewels. Oh my goodness. And so when we got to the hotel, I put them in the hotel safe and the last thing I want. It was all good. They were beautiful. No, I did not keep or buy them. Then I remember sitting there a year later with Donald Trump, and I assume it was his wife, I don't even remember, in front of us. I'm like, bet she didn't borrow those. Bet she got, those are just from her cabinet.
Do you usually get borrowed jewels the other years?
No, that was the only time.
No, that was the first time. Because the celebrities who come down the red carpet, they say, the jewels are from so-and-so, the dress is from so-and-so.
And when you hear, they always make a big deal about the Oscar gift bag that people will get, this year it's a trip to Bora Bora and a new car and blah, blah, blah. That is for the actor and actress and I think directors. Nobody else gets those gifts. So, people will, what are you doing with your did you go to Bora Bora? That's not for us. That's, again.
Not animated feature.
No, they know who, those go to the people who make it into People magazine.
Like they really need a free trip to Bora Bora.
Exactly.
So they usher you to your seat and you just expected to wait there until the show begins.
Exactly. And the word gets around the order of categories, so you kind of know, we're going to be first category in, which is actually great because it gets it over with. Or, you're 2/3 in. Ugh. Because you're just a bundle of nerves the whole time you're sitting there. Once it's yes or no, you can kind of start breathing again and either enjoy the show, or you could get up during a commercial break, go out and have a drink and take a while coming back to your seat. Because it's a long show. It's, you're sitting for 3+ hours.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. If you do either just want to get up or you need to use the restroom, so you wait for a commercial break, then you can get up and you need to wait till another commercial break to come back and sit down.
Or they'll say 30 seconds. And if you're not back in your seat, they close the doors. Those people in the very front, they talk about seat fillers. Yeah. And there are people who are hired who wear nice clothes and they have a lanyard that says seat filler. And when 10 seconds to go, if they see that Harrison's Ford seat's still empty, they'll point to somebody else who's kind of standing along the side and say, you, sit in row 2. And, they throw their lanyard behind them so it's not hanging on their chest and go sit for that chunk of show because they think an empty seat looks bad.
When you're sitting there, you said, the nominees are probably pretty nervous. Is the feeling a little bit tense, or can you sit and actually enjoy the show? And is it fun to watch it? Or do you feel like when you watch it home, is it more enjoyable?
Well, it is, it's like watching a football game. You get a better view when you're sitting on your couch than you do when you're on the 20-yard line. So it depends where you're seated, if you can see what's going on. You're not nervous. Well, you're nervous up until, just because of butterflies, until they announce your category. And then when they say, next up, animated feature, it's it. So, and then you're just kind of breathing through it.
You would mention that, when you were pregnant, that there's a lot of standing O's. So what else during the show? Like, what happens during the commercial breaks? Are people just sitting around kind of bored
They whip out their phones and are on doing whatever they need to do, or they've jumped out and gone out to the bathroom or get a drink and they're over the loudspeaker saying 60 seconds, 30 seconds, take your seats, and during a commercial break, if you have time, you can go jump up and say hi to somebody and to sit back down depending on where you're seated. But mostly it's people getting out their phones and answering the texts that have come through.
That's probably it from friends.
Yeah. During this show, Pete and Dana won, and they were upstage, and Pete accidentally left his phone sitting next to me on this bench where we were seated, and he goes up and accepts, he and Dana, and then they go backstage to do press, and Dana's husband David and I are sitting there, and we knew that we're back on television and that David and I were actually seen from where the camera angle was. We knew we were on live TV. But we could just feel the bench just buzzing of all these texts coming for all the phones are just lighting up. And we're not going to answer the phone during the show.
How does it feel to know that you're on live TV? Even you're not directly on, but even sort of in the background.
It's of course, it's crazy. Yeah. This show, just a couple months ago, David and I were, Dana's husband, we're just milling about, kind of walking along, and we stopped and we talked to somebody, and my phone's blowing up, and I happened to look at it, and apparently we are straight in line of Glenn Close was talking to the press. I guess we're clear as anything that it was us and we're just chatting, having no idea 12 feet away from us is live cameras, and oops.
Whereas other people probably would have tried to position themselves. Oh, there's Glenn Close. Let's stop right here.
Oh, yes.
Get a good shot.
Yeah, they do that. People do that all the time.
Well, you're very nonchalant about it.
When we always joke that when after an award show, and the People magazine will come out with all the pictures from the Oscars. We're not looking at the celebrities. We're looking at the people who are behind, because that's where we see our friends and our people who are just, milling in the back row. Oh, look, there's so-and-so looking at her purse in the back row,
I watched Pete's acceptance speeches when he won, and they're very lovely. And has he memorized them?
Yes.
He's written them beforehand, and then he memorizes them. Has he told you about, I said what I wanted to say?
Yeah.
And I wrote, there was one really sweet thing when he won for Up. He said at the end, he thanked your kids and you, and then he said, "You guys are the greatest adventure."
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought that was so touching and pertinent to the theme of the movie, and I was just wondering how you felt.
One of the things, once they announced the nominees, which is back 8 weeks before the show, so that's when you get down to your 5 finalists. Soon thereafter, they have a nominee luncheon, and it's down at the Hollywood Beverly Hilton, and it is just for the nominees, a guest, and Board of Governors of the Academy. And it's actually a nice time, and you're seated. They scatter you at tables, so you might be sitting next to. I sat next to Renee Zellweger, in Chicago for one year, and she didn't eat a thing, by the way. And and directors and the costume designers, and so you're all scattered around, and it's a nice, it's a luncheon, but they make a big deal about, okay, so when you get up there, if you get up there, know what you're going to say. And don't just list names. Don't just thank your producer and your manager and your publicist and your blah, blah. Make it from the heart. Don't just ramble off on names. And they'll show clips of people who just list names, and you're like, oh, it's just boring for everybody else. So Pete definitely takes that to heart, and he really works on what he's going to say. And he feels like it feels kind of presumptuous to actually write it down, because I'm doing all this, I'm not going to win. What am I doing? But you need to do it. No matter, all 5 nominees need to know what they're going to say. Because then the person who gets up there, you've seen them, who say, oh, I didn't think I'd win. I don't. Yeah. And then they list their publicist and their manager and their agent, and they do exactly what they say not to. And it's kind of a boring speech.
And it's almost a waste of such an opportunity. You
exactly.
have that, whatever they give you, 30 seconds, a minute, I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's 30 seconds, yeah. And there's a clock at you.
Oh, blinking.
Yeah, so it's very, they keep you moving. If you pause, they'll jump in with the music, especially somebody who's not a celebrity. They want to get him off the stage, keep the show moving along.
So he's worked on those speeches and he's practiced it at home just to make sure he's comfortable.
Yes.
But he's not a performer, right? I mean, he's not a movie star.
So it's incredibly nerve-wracking to him. I mean, he has said that, when they say, and the Oscar goes to, he confesses to a moment of going, I don't want to win. I don't want to go up on stage. I don't want this heart-moving, this is terrifying, just from stage fright.
Of course. That's natural.
You get up there and you do it, and then from there, it's just a floating for him. It's just surreal, and you give the speech, and then he goes backstage, and he's got press to do back there. While I'm still seated through the rest of the show, I don't see him for 45 minutes or an hour. I'll have a seat filler come sit next to me, if we're in the front, while he's backstage doing what he needs to do.
How did it feel for you those times when his name is called? He leans over and gives you a kiss, and then he's up and out.
He's up and out.
You're hearing his speech. Are you
exactly.
sort of floating?
Oh, yeah. And I also know that I'm conscious that the cameras might flash to me, so I don't want to be doing anything dumb. Or I'm incredibly proud and incredibly happy and incredibly relieved. And, we've been nervous about this. And usually we're sitting by fellow nominees' spouses and whatever, so we bond together and are thrilled for our spouses. It's, whew. And then, So ultimately he will usually come back down seated, with Oscar in hand. And,
it doesn't have his name on it yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
And then show's over, and then all the nominees and the Academy governors, and I'm not sure what the list is, will, from the Dolby, go upstairs to the governor's ball. That's the dinner that's famously catered by Wolfgang Puck. And there'll be a inside-out table, and it's all the nominee, the sound design nominees and, people who are from Pixar will all be seated at the table. And, it's a dinner, but it's jumping up and talking to people, and you can take your Oscar into a room, and they have pre-engraved all names, for the plate. And so you give them the Oscar, and this is all done under cameras, and it's a fun thing to watch. And they'll polish the Oscar, and then they'll tiny screw on the plate that says, Oscar goes to Pete Docter. So they claim they've pre-engraved everybody, but then as the nominees are announced, they take the winner's plaque and put it in one pile, and the non-winners and tuck them away. And as a non-winner, you don't get to keep them. You can't ask for the plaque.
Those might get shredded or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So then do you eat? Are people too nervous to eat? Is it just mingling? Or
it's, kind of all of the above, yeah. If you're seated and talking to somebody, you grab a few bites, that's great. Or you're jumping up to go. If you have the Oscar in hand, you feel quite confident going up to somebody and introducing yourself. Hi, Steve Martin. And hi, congratulations. And, he's a little more receptive to a stranger coming up who's holding an Oscar.
The ultimate social lubricant.
Oh, yes. Oscar. Oh, exactly. And then some people just skip the governor's awards or ball and go straight to a studio party. There's a Vanity Fair party, and Harvey Weinstein used to have a big party. And I'm trying to think of who will have parties.
Elton John? Wasn't there?
Yeah. We went to an Elton John party. Yeah, I don't know if he still has those or not. We haven't been invited for a long time. And before the night has started, we might hear, you've been invited to the Vanity Fair party. Well, that's nice. So you could go win or lose. But if you've won, you can go to any party. You and your troupe can walk in, and they'll let you in. So even if you weren't invited to Elton John's party, you could go to Elton John's party if you have an Oscar.
It's your golden ticket.
For the night.
Have you guys done that? Do you tend to kind of party hop around?
We've gone to the Vanity Fair. It's been in a couple different places. And, it is sit and chat with Don Rickles. It's fun. And they'll have those, photo booths like all parties have these days. And one time there was a group that had just crammed into one, and they started, and Pete just walked up, absolute strangers, and just slid the curtain down and put the Oscar in to these people's picture. And we just heard this eruption of squeals, and they grab it, and they took more pictures with this stranger's Oscar. But it's all in good fun, and everyone's so happy, and, it's great. Usually there's a lot of people from Pixar who've come down for the weekend who didn't go to the show, and they're all hanging out at the hotel, watching and eating and drinking and, just socializing. And so we often want to get back to them because they worked on the movie and they came down for this, and we'll go back and we can take off our uncomfortable clothes and shoes and, hang out with friends. And that's as fun as anything else.
It sounds like you've met a lot of well-known people and interesting people and people you didn't expect to meet just through all these experiences.
Oh, yeah. Here we are in Northern California, which is not where most studios are. And so for us, it's almost like we get to go down there, play this game, and meet people, and it's funny, it's crazy. And then the next morning, we're back on Southwest, flying home, and life's back to normal. But exactly. I remember one day coming home, it was a Monday, and I had all the dry cleaning of Pete's tux and my dress, and I needed to go there to the grocery store before I picked up the kids from school, and I ran into somebody at the dry cleaners, and she said, "So tell me all about it." And I was like, "I gotta go. I gotta get some milk." And you just
we're gone for the weekend. Yeah. We need food.
I remember dumping the clothes on the dry cleaners table and kind of like, well, here they are, done. That's it.
Award season is finished.
This is it.
How late do you usually stay out that night?
I don't know. 2, 3, but then if we go back to the hotel, we're just hanging out with friends, and, that could stay another hour or two, or it kind of depends how exhausted everyone is. And
what a celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, when else in life are you staying up till 3 a.m?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Is really fun. What do your kids think of all this?
I have always raised the kids to say, what you do is not who you are. Your dad is your dad, and he farts like everybody else, and he's a great dad, and he, leaves his shoes around, and he provides well, but the Oscars don't make him who he is. Win or lose or win, that's not who he is. And so they know it. They've heard it from me. Both of them keep it pretty down low through school and college and stuff, what their dad has done. So it's fun, and They're aware, but they also know that it doesn't make you a better or worse person from this. Nobody gives themselves more awards than Hollywood and real estate agents, I've always said. So there's a point at which he chose a job that publicly gets awarded. There should be these big awards for teachers and for, and it's just not where our society puts what it thinks is important. But I don't want my kids to think that it's their special, there's no reflected glory. They need to stand on their own 2 feet.
And also, from what I know about him, he didn't get into this for the awards. He got into this
heavens, no.
for the love of it. And
exactly.
The awards happened to come. So
exactly.
I think that's a whole different approach to life.
Yes.
As you can
Very
see in
much
the movies.
So. To some degree, he wishes the awards. They're fun. Don't get me wrong. And winning is way more fun than losing. But it's not what you should hang your hat on.
Certainly. And how about for you with your own career and relationship and what you do in the house? I know he started as an artist and now he's sort of an executive, so that's a different role. But do you feel like you have to be the one kind of keeping everything going at home so he can go do his thing?
Yes. I have said many times, Pete makes movies and I do everything else. He is...
And everything else is a lot of else.
Yeah. As my mom says, Pete's not of a lot of earthly good, is he? So... Which is not true, but I do a lot of things that he has no idea how this got done. And we're a good team. I think he's good at what he does. I'm good at what I do. I think we complement each other well. I don't mind doing that. Some women might not like it. Some spouses might not like it. I think it works well for us.
That's great. Because, like you said, most careers don't get these sort of accolades like he seems to get. So it's nice that you can support him and not feel like what you do doesn't get a big gold statue and national television coverage, but that doesn't mean it's any less important.
And he is one to say he couldn't do what he does without me doing everything else. He knows that. Have to remind him every once in a while, but he knows. Do
you look forward to going to future Oscar ceremonies if you have the opportunity?
Sure. Oh yeah, it's always fun. It's the build up to, it's all the fun stuff around it. The show itself is a 3 hours sitting in an auditorium, but then you go to parties after, it's seeing people that you know or want to know. And,
How about compared to other, like the Golden Globes or any other, is this really the big kahuna that
it definitely
is fun?
The award shows, there's a few late in the year, and then come after January 1st, there's the New York Film Critics Association, there's the National Board of Review, there's the British Academy Awards, the BAFTAs. That's a fun. We get to go to London, and that show clips along in like an hour and a half. They cut in commercial breaks later, so I don't think you get up and go to the bathroom ever. And then there's the Visual Effects Society, and there's the Producers Guild Awards, and the Animation Guild Awards. So there's a lot of different shows, and some are fun, and some are really long.
That's where the comfy shoes come in.
Well, it's where you wind up kind of pulling out your phone, and when people are not cut off, there is that 30-second speech. You do appreciate it, because some people can really go on, and they do list all those names, and the show can get long.
Yeah, those names don't mean anything to anyone except those particular people.
Exactly.
And you feel like they could tell that person in person.
Yeah. So every show has its fun part. The Golden Globes, you sit down at a table and you actually eat, and then they, in theory, clear the table, and everyone's been drinking. They have champagne going everywhere, and then the show starts, so everyone's much more relaxed.
Because of the drinking.
Yeah, and you've been already seated, and you're at a table that should hold 8, and it's holding 12. And the next table over is just, the backs of the chairs are all together. And
is everyone at your table, like, let's say you were there for Inside Out, would it all be Pixar people?
Well,
or do they mix you up?
For that, at least the animation category is all in one area. This is a good story. It was the Critics' Choice Awards. We were seated and with assigned seats, and right across from us was Paul McCartney and his then girlfriend. And we're like, oh, this is amazing. Okay. So he sits down. He's so he knows what he has to do is shake everyone's hand and nice to meet you and get autographs and pictures, whatever. He sits down and he was up for a song for some movie. I don't even know what it was. And whenever there was a commercial break and people could jump to the bathroom, everybody came over to see Paul McCartney. And so we didn't move an inch because everyone's coming to our table and it was just great. So Paul, he didn't win whatever his category was, and he didn't really care. I mean, he was there, but he didn't look it wasn't going to keep him up that night. Next time he could, he goes, I'm sneaking out. Nice to meet all you. And he, ducked down and left the theater. He's allowed to do that. And I promptly reached over, grabbed his half-consumed, I think it was a margarita glass, dumped out the drink, grabbed his napkin, wrapped it up, and stuffed the thing in my purse. So I have it here, a glass, and you can still see lip marks on it. And it was
Paul McCartney's margarita glass.
What's the what are you going to do? You got to do it.
Quick thinking, Amanda.
Yeah.
Quick thinking.
Why not? Once in a lifetime.
Thanks for sharing all your experiences.
Oh, yeah.
I have a clear vision, a red carpet vision of the whole experience now. Thank you.
It's fun. It's fun.
I loved all of Amanda's stories about the fancy awards shows. A lot of her experiences can apply to all of our lives. Here are some of my takeaways. Number 1, what you do is not who you are. 2, there should be Academy Awards for teachers and first responders and nurses, not just movie folks. 3, sit where you're assigned to sit, even if you think you deserve to be up front. 4, just because your work doesn't earn you a gold statue or national television recognition, it doesn't mean it's not important. And finally, number 5, seize opportunities. When you find yourself metaphorically across a table from Paul McCartney's margarita glass, grab it. I'd like to thank the very kind Amanda Docter for sharing her stories with me. Please visit our website, theexperiencepodcast.net, to explore other episodes and find out how to follow us on social media. And if you're enjoying the Experience Podcast, I'd be so grateful if you'd rate, review, and subscribe. It helps others discover us. A new episode drops every Wednesday. I'm Elizabeth Pearson Garr. Thanks for joining in the experience.